It's a follow-up presentation of what we have been seeing yesterday. Conservation agriculture in the world and how to operationalize. And I know that this is not a real English word. If you put this in the computer, it says it doesn't exist. But it's a word I made out of it. What I want to say is how to. I gave you 3 concepts for conservation agriculture, and the big question is how do we operate those 3 principles in the different agroecological conditions that we have all spread out over the world. What was the concept that we saw yesterday? What we saw yesterday was that conservation agriculture consists of 3 important pillars. Crop rotation, soil-based crop rotation we try to increase. We try to decrease the intensity of the soil disturbance, and we try to increase the surface crop retention. So what we actually try to do is we try to move as much as possible to the right side of this graph. I say as much as possible, and maybe to get here, you first have to go step by step by step to end up at this side of the graph. Okay? So what I want to make clear is conservation agriculture, it may seem like, but it's not a religion. We are not pleading for a religion. It's not dogmatic. It's trying to move as much as possible to the right of this graph. So CA normally works best when we combine those 3 principles and that in an integrated manner. Alright? I will show you why. These are the first results. These are results from our long-term trial here in El Matan. It's the D5 trial that you saw yesterday. Okay? Look at the first results. Continuous maize, conventional tillage, removed all the residues. This is what the farmer is doing in this area. Okay? If we apply one concept of conservation agriculture, we apply 0 tillage only, but we keep continuous maize and we keep removing all the residues, my yield drops. Next step. If I include continuous maize, conventional tillage, but now I apply another part of the 3 concepts. I incorporate all the residues. I gain a little bit, but it's not spectacular. If I take the next step, I incorporate the residues, and I take the next point of the 3 principles. I incorporate rotation and make a new jump. If I take away again, if I do rotation, now I'm going to do 0 tillage, so I take 2 of the principles, but I don't include the residue retention, I'm punished. If I do the 3, maize wheat, 0 tillage, retain, I get a big gain. Okay? Now look at something else. This is a percentage of coefficient of variance. Look what throughout the year. So it's the variability of the yield in different years. Look here. High variability with what the farmer is doing. Low and lowest variability if we go to what we call conservation agriculture and we combine the 3 principles. So we're not only having high yields, we're also having stable yields in time over different growing seasons. Message, we have to combine the 3 principles to get the full benefit out of it. And now it's not me telling it, it is data from 1996 up to 2007 that are proving it for the rain-fed conditions. Yes, please.
The yield of the rotation is only maize or maize plus wheat?
The question is, the rotation that we are using is only maize wheat? Yes. It's only in this rotation here, it is the rotation maize wheat, which is not the most optimum rotation. So probably you will get even more gain out of the rotation if you go for a more crop diversified rotation. But in this area, already jumping from continuous maize to maize wheat is already a big step because farmers are doing continuous maize. And wheat is one of the possibilities, but it's also economically viable in this area. That's why we use maize wheat rotation.
I said the yield is only maize.
The yields here is only maize. Yes, of course, it's all maize yields. So the question was if the yields that I am presenting here are only maize yields. Yes, of course, it's only the maize yields. No? It's the maize side of the story. I can tell you exactly the same story for wheat. Okay?
So this in the first round, three shells, maybe we have 10 years a year average, or just only 5 years.
Yeah, I know where you wanted to go to. No, that's not true. He's saying that because it's only maize, that maybe here we have 10 years, and here we have, when we do rotation, you only have 5 years data. That's of course not true. Why? Because we have a, what we call binary phased design. That means you have one crop per year. So if you have one crop per year and you have rotation, the correct design is the following. Treatment 1 is maize-maize. Treatment 2 is maize-wheat. And treatment 3 is wheat-maize. And in my case, treatment 4 is wheat-wheat. But we are only looking at these. So I have every year, I have results for maize in the rotation, keeping the residue, etc., etc. So I include both phases of the rotation, so I have the same basis. So I have 10 years data and every bar. Answer to your question? Is it an answer to your question? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. This was a smart question, by the way. Okay. So, this is the proof by pictures. Zero till, no cropping of maize without residues. Zero till with rotation plus residues. Conservation agriculture, zero tillage. So again, zero tillage as such is not making the difference. And before you ask, same variety, same fertilizer use, same herbicide, everything is exactly the same. That also means that my colleague, breeder, who put a lot of effort in developing the best varieties, and I put it under this is really disrespect to his work. Because he has developed a very high potential seed, a very high potential variety, and if you put it under these conditions, you are not going to get the potential out of it. So you can do as much breeding as you want. If you don't combine it with the right agronomy, it is not going to work. And it is an insult for the work of the breeders even. Okay? What's the bad side of the story? This is the condition of lots of plots out in the world. Africa, Central America, I don't know about China, Central Asia, I haven't been there long enough, don't know about Romania, but definitely know about Ethiopia, that this condition is the condition where most of the plots are in. Okay? Same for wheat. No residues, zero till. Zero till with residues. You see an immediate effect of leaving the residues. So only by leaving the residues we already have this huge effect. So not all reduced tillage is conservation agriculture. This is an example from India. One pass, no, sorry, from Bangladesh. One pass with a rototiller is reduced tillage. But it's still burning the residue. And that one pass rototiller is such a good rototiller that it is really destroying the whole soil when it passes, because it has lots of knives, so it really destroys that topsoil. So yes, it's reduced tillage, yes, it's reduced fuel use, but this is not conservation agriculture. This is conservation agriculture. Look here, beautiful zero-till cedar in straw that you have here. This is conservation agriculture. Same thing here. Bad example. Although you can go for zero-tilled wheat, if afterwards you puddle the rice, there's not going to be much of a benefit of the zero-till wheat. Because what's puddling? Puddling is really sealing the soil. It's destroying the soil structure in order to be able to put water on the surface and to have flooded rice. And this is not conservation agriculture. These are examples of how you can do direct seeded zero-till rice, double zero-till, rice and wheat zero-till, non-puddled, bad planted rice. That's the way you should go if you want full potential out of the system. Okay? Now, like I said, in a lot of situations it is a continuum of resource conserving technologies. It's a continuum of going from one side of the graph to the other side of the graph. The most beautiful example is the one here. This is how a typical flood irrigation situation looks like, and you can confirm. How do farmers in Ethiopia irrigate?
It's flood irrigation, not furrow irrigation.
It's basin flood irrigation. At the Gulum, most of them do it like this. Small plots, and you just flood the whole plot. Flood irrigation. If we can do already first step and go from this to this is conventionally tilled beds. You are already saving 20% of water. This is what I call a conservation agriculture based resource conserving technology. Why? Because this is preparing the terrain for taking the next step, permanent beds. So it is from one flood irrigation going to till beds. That's the first step. The next step is we go to permanent beds. But we know when we are going from flood irrigation to conventionally tilled beds, we know that the idea is to go to permanent beds afterwards. So it's walking along the continuum to conservation agriculture. Maybe the first step is not really conservation agriculture. Okay? It's very important. You see the difference. You see what I want. You understood my... Yeah? Everybody's with me? Same thing. Sprinkler irrigation system. I'm going to walk over to the other side of the room, so the camera has to follow. This is a bit difficult standing there. Okay, so this is a sprinkler irrigation system. Again, beds. What did we do? Very simple modification. We just put nozzles on it that go in the bottom of the furrow. So now the water is delivered in the bottom of the furrow. I can still sprinkle it on top also, but I can also put it in the bottom of the furrow. Why? Because there's lots of situations where sprinkling irrigation gives us results, and you're going to confirm it to me, that there's lots of disease pressure. Because lots of diseases are happy with high temperatures and with high humidity. So if the humidity is why the spikes are for a wheat crop, you have a problem. Now problem solved by one simple thing. Just put a plastic tube that goes until the bottom. Now this simple issue, this simple solution took us 15 years in CIMMYT to come up with. Okay? Which system are we going to use where? I asked you to think about it yesterday evening. So now, and I'm going to go back so you don't look at the solution. Where are you going to use which situation? We have permanent beds, we have narrow permanent beds, we have broad permanent beds, and we have on the flat. Where are you going to use which situation? In irrigated wet soil, you would use without any residue?
Yes.
Okay. Is that still conservation agriculture, you think? Maybe. I think you're right in the sense that if you have irrigation, and I will show you data of it, and you take away the residue, the effect of the residue will be less visible because you are masking it with the water. But still, even in irrigated conditions, you have to leave residue to really make conservation agriculture work. But I think I know where you're heading on. If you leave all the residue on the flat And you're then going to try to do flood irrigation. What they have done in lots of areas, even in North America. What they do is, oh, let's do zero till like you do in Argentina. Okay? So we leave all the residue, we put on the flat, and then you try to push the water through. Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. Because the straw is going to be blocking the movement of the water. So in that situation, what do? We go to permanent beds. Because you can perfectly guide the flood water in the furrow of the permanent bed. That's operationalizing the 3 principles. Permanent beds, reduce tillage, leaving the residue, doing crop rotation, but for irrigated situation, if it's flood irrigation, it's not going to work if you do it on the flat. It's going to work if you do bed planting.
That seems that we don't have another solution. This is less than the only one, I think, to flood irrigation, with beds.
For flood irrigation with beds? Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. Next question is, do you use wide beds or narrow beds? You say narrow? Wide beds or narrow beds? Narrow bed. I would also go for narrow beds. Why? 2 narrow beds are 1 wide bed. With 1 wide bed, you cannot turn into 2 narrow beds. Let me explain. If you have irrigated situation, we're talking about irrigated situation. Narrow bed, wide bed. It's much more difficult to wet the bed from here to the middle than from here to the middle and from here to the middle. Now, if you have a crop like beans, beans hate wet feet. They hate to stand in the water. So sometimes, I mean, we have, Cancer and I, we have killed beans in Oregon because we gave them too much water. And they just, from one day to the other, after the irrigation, they just fall over. They don't like it. Now that's no problem. Then you can just irrigate in this furrow and irrigate in this furrow. And you just block this furrow and you have a broad bed. But if you go back to cereals in your rotation, then again you have 2 small beds. You open here and you again irrigate in each of the furrows. It's about common sense. It's about operationalizing the principles of CA. Now, obviously the next point is, if you have sprinkler irrigation, maybe the beds are not so necessary, because you're sprinkling anyway. But then still think about the fact of the diseases. So maybe it is good to have beds, so you can guide at the end when the crop is big, you can guide with nozzles your water in the furrow. Maybe, I don't know. So basically the division I would make, flood irrigation, definitely permanent narrow beds. Why narrow? I explained to you. Bed dimension. Now, wherever I go and wherever I talk, everybody says, should my bed be 75 or 78 centimeters? What do you think? Your oxen are walking at a distance. So the decision how wide the bed is about how wide the tractor is, or how wide the use of the animals are. Because there is nothing more difficult than trying to make 2 oxen walk closer together or further away. If you put them further away, they try to come together because they are used, they are trained, they are conditioned. It's really funny. If you have oxen that always walk at half a meter distance one from the other, they want to walk half a distance one from the other. So if you put them farther away, they try to come together. So you have a problem when you are making your furrow. If you try to put them closer away, they try to get away. So the width of the bed, what determines the width of the bed? It's very easy. Sorry. Tractor wheel. Tractor wheel. And on the back, I have my implement I showed you yesterday, implement I showed you yesterday, implement I showed you yesterday. If I have oxen, one ox walks here, the other ox walks here. Here is the implement. Here is the yoke. So, as long as it is between 60 and 75, 60 and 80 centimeters, it depends on the width of the implement. So for other irrigation systems, flat planting is okay, huh? If it's sprinkling, is it now? But still, what is the advantage of the bed planting? The inherent control traffic. If you want to do control traffic, now the fact that we could plant so easily here, but we have been planting on the permanent beds, why is it? Because I just have to tell my tractor driver, drive in the furrow. It's very easy. If I have no furrows, you have tried to doubt first, trying to tell a tractor driver, drive straight. No tractor driver drives straight, he always tends to, he goes like this. So what you have to do is you need GPS. Or you need a line on the floor so the driver you need to paint a line. So what we're going to do in the flat planting is tomorrow we're going to measure out the different distances for the machine, and we will be driving with the machine along those distances. It's much more work. For drip irrigation, you need controlled traffic because you don't want to drive with your tractor on top of your drip lines. So sometimes then it's easier to have beds because you guarantee that nobody is driving on the drips. Because once your tractor, with this system of the scratch, once your tractor starts wrong, it's all wrong. But it's still a question of starting right, no? But anyway, okay? Sprinkler, you can bring the nozzles down, but still, okay, if you have other irrigation systems, it can be flat planting. But with flat irrigation, the only solution seems to be bed planting. Now, rain-fed situation. What are we going to do in the rain-fed situation? Discussion we had this morning in the field, isn't it? Why beds? You in Romania, you don't use beds, you use flat planting. Perfect. Flat planting, zero till, in a situation where you have lack of moisture, perfect. No problem. In a situation where you have too much water, you probably go for the beds. Why? Because you have a direct drainage system. There are situations, Toluca, 800 millimeters a year, too much water. Ethiopia, vertical area, too much water, so you need the drainage. Probably in the vertical area in Ethiopia, you need the drainage, and at the same time, you need the water harvesting capacity. Now your beds can do the drainage, and they can harvest the water at the same time. So if you have too much water, probably you go for beds. This is what I mean. This is a tilled plot with the residue removed in Toluca. This is a no-tilled plot with the residue retained. There was a heavy rain shower. I went, and these pictures were taken 2 seconds one from another. The time it was needed to drive with the car from the one side to the other side. This is of course the downside of the plots. The plots are laser level, so you don't see. This is the downside. This is what happens with the tilled plot. This is what happens with the zero till plot. Look at the downside of the plot. Almost no water is disappearing through the drain. Here, the drain is already full, and it cannot cope. Look here, it cannot cope with the water anymore, so it's standing water. What do you think is going to happen with the crop that's standing here? You already see it actually. You can see that here the crop is dying. Here you have a clear problem, it's lost, no? Now, what do we do in rain-fed situation if we have small beds? Now, if we have small beds, like I told you, we can have a problem. Why? I'll explain you right now. In irrigated situations, if you have a small grain, and it's an irrigated situation, and you have the right variety, and you put 2 lines on it, what's going to happen? I'm losing space here, right? That's the first thing your farmer is going to say. It's the first thing you were saying. All those space is just gone, while we plant much closer. Now, if you have wheat has tillering capacity. So if you're in an irrigated situation, you put the water when the wheat has to tiller, and just by the tillering capacity of the variety, experiments have shown that the tillering will compensate for the open space. Because the open space is a border effect. If you look in your plots, the 2 outside lines, they always look better than the ones inside, because they don't have competition. They can grab light from the outside. Now here, you have a double border effect, because there will be more light coming in, and that more light will provoke tillery. So this is for irrigated situation, because there is no problem with water. Now if we go to the rain-fed situation, we can have a problem. Rain-fed situation, small drains on narrow beds, like here, where there is a lack of water, especially if there's a lack of water, then you can have a problem. Why? Because lots of times, where is the lack of water? Exactly in the tillering period. And then the tillering, there will not be enough water to tiller. So this capacity, this gap will not be closed because there is not enough water to close it. So then you don't go for narrow beds. Because then the open space will result in losing yield. You see the two different situations. In irrigated, you will close the gap by the tiller. In rain-fed, if there is lack of water, you cannot close the gap because there is lack of water to guarantee the tiller. Yeah. But beds have one big advantage. Control traffic and access to the field. Now this is for small grains. No? If you're talking about maize, maize can perfectly live on narrow beds, no? Because anyway you put your maize at 75 centimeter. The rows are anyway 75 centimeter wide. Beans the same thing, no? You put them anyway, not so close. Okay? Now, I said rain-fed, this could be a problem. But the advantage of beds is to control traffic and the fact that you can enter with your tractor whenever you want. So why not go then for broad beds? Broad beds, you have the full stand here, but still you have the advantage of the control traffic. You see what I mean? Next situation, and I think you know this. This is Habresela, an area in Ethiopia where our friend comes from. Look where the ox is walking. Yeah, in the last made furrow. Look what we are using. The normal plow we use to make beds. Rain-fed situation, lack of rain. How do we make small beds? Because look at this picture. The area is like this. It's a slope. So if you make small beds, what will happen? The water will be blocked in the slopes. Because what are the farmers doing? As you can see here, by the Food for Work program, you have lots of small walls, stone buns. Lots of stone buns. But what do you see in between the stone buns? There is better growth here than there. Why? Because still within the field, the water is still running from the top side of the field to the downside, and then it's blocked by the stone wall. But still within the field, the water is running. So if we then make furrows that will block the water and keep it in the field. And these are...
So what's the solution?
Furrows. Permanent beds. If we make permanent beds like we do here, the water will stay in every furrow. And you have to make it on the contour, but slightly inclined, so that if there is too much excess water, it still can run out. No? This is actually the result. Now you can tell me, you have seen the wheat in the traditional plots. This is Habresela. Permanent beds. Look at, this is a wall of wheat. Same thing for here, Mexico. Islands of Mexico, oats on permanent beds. Now if you ask me if you ever have seen oats, and if you have seen how the crops look in this area, because this is a really dry area, we will visit it. These are wonderful oats. Another advantage of beds in India, intercrop, sugarcane. Indians, they are really inventive, no? It's dangerous to go to India because you give them an idea and you have an idea. You give them an idea. In Ethiopia it happens too. You give them an idea and you go back and you have no time and you go and you have to talk to this and that and you have no time to work out your idea. 6 months later you still have your idea but you haven't done much with it because you are too busy. 6 months you go back to India and they have worked out the whole idea. That's how it should go. Huh? So what did they do? They were permanent beds. They have sugarcane. Now the sugarcane has to be crushed in order to retune. So you have to crush it. Now smart, you know, what did he say? I just plug a wheat crop in between. Then I harvest my wheat crop. And by the wheels of the combine, I crush the sugarcane and I get the returning. So he could push one more crop inside, and then the sugarcane grows for 2-3 years. You see what I mean? So he could include one more crop by using the wet plant.
For example, the rainfall.
There it's all irrigated. It's fully irrigated. So rain-fed situation, lack of water, flat planting, especially for cereals, or broad permanent beds, because we still have the advantage of the controlled traffic, and we still have the advantage of the access to the field. If there's excess water, narrow permanent beds. If you're on slopes, permanent beds, and it's going to depend if it's broad or narrow. Because of course, once you start leaving the residue, also the residue will keep your water in place, okay? So maybe not the beds are not so necessary. Do you see what I mean by operationalizing the principles of conservation agriculture within different systems? Depending on the systems, you will do one thing or another thing, but it is all conservation agriculture, because it's all based on the 3 principles: reduce tillage, leaving crop residue, and doing crop rotation.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Good. Zero tillage in the world. People say, and it's especially one specialist who's Rolf Derbsch, he's a big zero-till consultant now, he's a private consultant, he's a big zero-till guru, so to say. He's worked with zero-till for all his life. Put it together these numbers and you will come up with a total of 76 million hectares of zero-till. But now, there is a big trick. As you already saw, zero tillage is not necessary conservation agriculture. And there are lots of systems behind here. For example, USA, what do? 4 or 5 years zero till and then they plow again. And what has the result shown? If you do 4 or 5 years of zero till and then you plow, you basically erase the advantages of your system that you built up during the years. You erase it by plowing. You take it away again. Yeah? For IGP, in the Benguetic Plains, we are now up to 3 million hectares of zero-till. But it's zero-till in wheat, it's no zero-till in rice. So it's a hybrid system. Okay? So you have to be aware that behind these numbers, there are very different systems locked up. And maybe not all of them are so sustainable. So countries with the major areas of conservation agriculture, but again, be careful. USA, they report 21 million hectares. But like I said, most of the time it is zero till, and then with residue, etc., and then they go back to normal tillage. Brazil, of course, Brazil, Argentina, those are the big countries where conservation agriculture started. Big farms, big machinery. Australia, it's rain-fed also. They use a lot of bed plants. Canada and Paraguay. This is what it is. Common seeder for conservation agriculture in the USA. This is what we call big farms. Common seeder in Argentina. USA and Canada. So basically, conservation agriculture was invented and is built out big farms, rain-fed, deep soils in Argentina. Which 2 areas are there for us to resolve? Rain-fed small farmers and irrigated. Because in irrigated situations, people were struggling with how to apply conservation agriculture until Ken Sayre invented the permanent beds. Okay? Very little conservation agriculture in irrigated situations because not many people are thinking about the permanent bed system. Irrigated in the world. CIMMYT. CIMMYT has several stations, like I said. For the irrigated work, we work in Ciudad Obregón, North Mexico. Here you see where it's located. It's 38 meters above sea level. The maximum temperature during the growing season is 26.7 degrees for the wheat growing season. If you go in the summer, it goes up to 45 degrees. Okay, but this is for the wheat growing season. And temperature, minimum temperature 8.7 for the wheat growing season. Average rainfall, 50 millimeters of rain during the wheat growing season. So this is definitely irrigated situation. In a potential evaporation of 4.9 millimeters per day. So you can see where the water is going. The little water that's falling out is going into the sky. So this is basically an arid climate, okay? Kind of a desert climate. And the wheat growing season is from November to May. Soil is a vertisol, so it's a calcareous vertisol. It's low organic matter, very low actually, more than 0.1%. Slightly alkaline, and here you see that there is a high clay content. So it's definitely a typical vertisol. Now the area of Ciudad Obregón is representative for areas in Mexico, some areas here, so the blue areas are the areas where Obregón is representative for. Here, here, some areas here in Africa, you see some dots, but of course, huge representative areas for what is India, and of course also in China. Okay? So, agriculture and irrigation is the major consumer of water and of the resource of water in the world. But still, irrigation continues to be very inefficient. We are spreading it out, we are losing a lot of efficiency of water in the irrigating systems. So one of the main reasons why we want to extend conservation agriculture in this irrigated situation is because we want to improve water use efficiency. Now look at the big difference. Why did Argentina start conservation agriculture? Because of the erosion problem. Why do we want conservation agriculture in irrigated systems? Because we want to save water. That was what I was explaining you in the field. You have to think about the limiting factors of your system and see how you can apply the conservation agriculture as to give an answer to those limiting factors. By reducing rainwater runoff and evaporation and by enhancing the infiltration for the rainfed conditions, but more important for the irrigated condition, we're going to improve the water use efficiency by enhancing the efficiency of the delivery of water to the plant. So most farmers use flat irrigation with planting on the flat, which is very inefficient. Okay? And it's of course very, very difficult to move to the traditional flat stance of conservation agriculture. Okay? And still, we have to solve the problem because there is increasing competition for water resources. There is more and more demand for industrial uses. There's more and more demand for potable water for water households. There's more and more demand for recreational purposes. We all want swimming pools. More and more demand for agriculture. We want to produce more. So if we keep on deteriorating the soil, we're going to make less efficient use of the water, and we need more water to just produce the same amount of crop. So we need to go for more crop per drop, to go for efficient use of water. We have to bring the yield potential up of the field so that with the same amount of water we can have higher yielding crops. Irrigation water. Water will likely be the most important resource to improve the management in the 21st century. Water used for irrigation purposes provides food and economic security in many countries. Water availability for irrigation will decline in the future. And still, most gravity irrigation systems as used in most developing countries. Ethiopia is gravity, Mexico is gravity, India is gravity. Most of the developing countries use gravity irrigation system because the precision systems are too expensive. Sprinkling is too expensive. Drip is too expensive. So within this system, we have to get the best out of it in order to then in the future, I know the whole world should be under drip irrigation. The whole world should be under computerized systems that should give the exact amount of water that the plant needs. Well, we are still not living in Neverland. The situation is still that most of the developing world cannot afford those complicated systems. Okay, so in the future we have to go there, but what we do now we have to increase the potential in order to get more crop per drop. So in order to maintain the existing irrigated areas or to consider developing new irrigated areas, we have largely to increase irrigation water use efficiency. an experience and a beautiful example of the Yaqui Valley in North Mexico. Until 25 years ago, farmers planted wheat with flood irrigation on the flat with conventional tillage. Something like this. Very comparable to India, very comparable to Ethiopia, irrigated systems. I have never been in Romania, so I cannot say very comparable with, because I've not been there, and I've never been in China neither, so I cannot say very comparable with China neither, but you can take your own conclusion. Conventionally planted with flat irrigation, look at the crop, solid stand. Over the past 25 years, those farmers have taken their first steps and they have adopted bed planting for wheat with furrow irrigation. How does it look like? They jumped from this to this. So what he basically did is making it into bed planting system. 2 rows of wheat on top of the bed. Now, I made this presentation yesterday between 10 o'clock in the evening and 1 o'clock in the morning. And when I see the slides, because I speak Spanish, I don't realize it is in Spanish and not in English, so I apologize for the fact it's a Spanish slide. But what it basically says is it is 2 rows of wheat on top of the bed. These are the dimensions of the bed. And the columns are between 70 and 100 centimeters, depending on the width of the tractor wheels. And then we are going to irrigate in the furrows of the bed. But still, they're using conventional tillage. Still, there are lots of times burning. Now, burning was very common 10 years ago. Now it's not common anymore. Basically, 25 years ago, they started with going from flood irrigation to bed planting. First farmers started 25 years ago. Now, 99% of the area is under bed planting. These are huge adoption numbers. And now, 99% of the area is with retention of the straw, not burning anymore. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when the wheat is bigger. And here you see there are different varieties. It's because we put variety trials in farmers' fields in order. Why? Because there is an interaction between variety and system. So we want the best varieties to tiller, to take advantage of the gap, to have higher yields. So they have taken the first step, but it's only the first step. We want to make them take the next step. Which is the next step? Permanent beds, leaving the residue, diversified crops. We want to eliminate this out. We want to eliminate this because that's what it's still doing. Look where the soil is going. It's just blowing away. And if it was only soil, just soil. But together with the soil, lots of nutrients, lots of soil fertility. We are throwing away money. It is incredible how we are paying somebody to plow that is actually throwing away our money. We're paying double. Look at this. Reshaping the beds. It's the first step. It's okay as the first step, but we need to go for the next one. By the way, this is one for you guys. It's a Chinese 2-wheel tractor adapted for making beds and furrows. It's made in China. You can make a bed and furrow out of it. You get this presentation and don't worry. I will give you time to take a picture. Look how it works. For tilled situation. By the way, we will be planting with the Chinese 2-wheel tractor somewhere next week. Bangladesh. China again. China, but now by animals. Bed planting use either pre-seeding or post-seeding irrigation. Planting. The Chinese planted 4 beds. Chinese 2-wheel tractor making and seeding the beds for irrigation. This is a year actually here, but this is Cancer planting with the 2-wheel tractor. This is how the wheat looks like. These are actually trainees from India that came to Obregon. This is how it looks. It's big, bigger. This is how it looks after a while. This is how it looks when it's big. Conventionally tilled beds. Why do farmers adopt bed planting? Although we know it is the first step, but still, what are the advantages of the first step? You can reduce seed rate and still maintain your yield. I have done an on-farm trial this year, this same year, in the Yaqui Valley. 2 rows on the bed, 90 kg per hectare of seed. 3 rows on the bed, 110 kg of seed per hectare. And then the farmer was planting 3 rows on the bed and a row in the furrow, 130 kg per hectare. Who do you think was the highest yield?
90
kg per hectare, 2 rows. 110 kg per hectare, 3 rows, and 130 kg per hectare each row. 3 rows on the top and 1 row in the furrow. Okay? Who was the highest yielding, you think?
100.
This one was the highest yielding, followed by this one with a difference of 200 kg per hectare. So not even half a ton, not even a quarter of a ton. So now you have to start thinking. Because seed costs a lot of money, so you have to see if those 200 kg is really worth it. Okay? But from definitely this one was a loser. 3 rows, but actually what I'm thinking, if we push this up maybe to 100 kg in 2 rows, right or there, I think.
30 rows.
3 rows, I don't like 3 rows. I like more 2 rows. I think with 3 rows you're putting a lot of extra seed and not getting the yield out of it. But you have to try. But I like 2 rows. Because you have more tillage. And you have to select the right variety, of course. Okay? Usually, and this is really important, you reduce crop lodging. If you have solid stands and flat irrigation, half of your field falls over. If you have permanent beds, if you have conventionally tilled beds, you reduce dramatically the lodging problem in your field. It improves the efficiency of irrigation. It's much more easier to irrigate. Look, just push it through the furrows. Offers new weed control possibilities. You can mechanically cultivate. You can just put some shovel in the bottom and you have already cleaned the bottom without paying anything. You can do pre-seeding irrigation. It's easier if you have the beds, you just do pre-seeding irrigation and then you apply an overall herbicide and then you plant. It facilitates hand weeding. Do you know why the farmers in Harasela liked the bed system? Because it was much easier to hand weed the wild oats because they had a furrow to walk through. Do you know why they liked the bed system? Because they had less damage of rats. Because the birds in the sky, the stone walls are a beautiful place for rats to hide, no? So the rats were eating the crop, but the birds could see because there was a small open space, so much less rat damage. I didn't know that, no? That was curiosity that I learned in Ethiopia. Okay? But they like it because there's access to the field to eat. So it facilitates hand weeding. And it reduces as such the dependency on herbicides. This is what I mean. You just go with and you do cultivation and you have you just go with the shovel in the middle and you clean already the furrows. Again? You can easily access the field to spray. Because what is the big problem with weed control? When we don't spray equally in the field. Because when we have spots where you spray high amounts and spots where you don't spray high amounts, you are going to create resistance to the herbicides. So if you have access to the field, you can, on whatever stage of your crop, you can apply your herbicide. So you have ready field access for new opportunities also to apply your second dose of fertilizer. What's the most common one if you have, what can you do to apply your second dose of fertilizer if you have solid sand? Throw it through the air and hope it falls on the ground. It's the only way you can do it. But if you have beds, you can actually put it into the ground, which will be much more efficient than just throw it into the air. That's what I mean. You inject your fertilizer in the furrow. Will increase tremendously your efficiency. Same thing. This is a big crop. Still you can get with your tractor in it. Okay, now, first step for the Yaqui Valley. We want the next step. Now farmers are taking the next step. What's the next step? Permanent bed planting systems. Permanent bed planting system provides opportunities to reuse the same bed. So we reduce the crop turnaround time. Harvest, reshape the bed, next crop can go in. Before it was harvest, plow, make the beds, apply the water, wait long enough until it is dry, then plant. You maintain your permanent beds and it provides opportunities to retain crop residue. It reduces the furrow soil erosion because you have the residue there. So I have tried conventionally tilled beds, permanent beds with residue. The water that comes off of the conventional tilled water, so if you irrigate the water, there's some tail water that goes off now. It looks brown in the conventionally tilled. It is white in the permanent bed planting system because you are reducing the erosion load in the water. And it improves chemical, physical and biological production parameters. And I apologize for this. So we want to eliminate burning. We want to reduce tillage. We want to have a chopper that equally distributes the residue to keep that residue there. This is what we want. This is what we want. This we can do. We take part of the straw, but we leave 30-40 centimeters standing stubble. If there is a market for the straw, why not? Especially irrigated situations, so you have high production of biomass. 2 crops a year, you're still coming maize after this. It's enough biomass, so you can take away part of it. Operationalizing the principles. It's not about leaving all the residues, it's about leaving rational amounts of residues. We reshape the bed. This is our multi-crop, multi-use unit. The green machine you saw yesterday, this is the version for bigger farms. You see this looks all completely more developed now. Because we have done more work on it, etc. These are now in the Yaqui Valley. Today, yesterday actually, 14 of those machines became available in the Yaqui Valley. Farmers are going to start with permanent beds. Now I'm really scared, because all the farmers want to start all at once, and who's going to give the technical advice? So next week I will have to leave you for 3-4 days, because I'm going to give an intense course in Oregon, but Ken Serre will take over for a couple of days, okay? And it will be the weekend, so it's no problem. It's only 2 days that I will leave you alone. Same machine. This is a machine. Sorry, here is a machine reshaping the beds. Same machine planting maize. Same machine planting wheat. It's not the same machine, but another machine planting wheat. Soya in the bed. Soya after wheat. Look, this is a beautiful plant. This is a beautiful field. Maize after wheat. Wheat after maize bigger, and when the wheat is really red. Soybean on permanent beds. More soybean. And I could show you safflower on permanent beds. And I could show you chickpea on permanent beds. Chickpea? Chickpea. It's a kind of a bean that they eat here in Mexico.